breaking news for your home. Wayday! Wayfair's big sale is almost here, and you can score the best deals in home. Like up to 80% off everything home. Yes, you heard that right. 80% off with free shipping on everything. Plus surprise flash deals all Wayday long. We're talking outdoor furniture and essentials, rugs, and more. All at Wayfair, and all up to 80% off during Wayday. Shop Wayfair's Wayday from April 25th through 27th.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Wonder is an active choice. Wonder is not something that happens to you. It's something you choose. It's a posture. It's a way of engaging with the world. The more you study, the more there is to discover. Depth does not lead to final answers. It leads to better questions. And those questions open new paths every time.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 358 and number 34 in our Edge of the Napkin series. If this is your first time here, this podcast is built on the belief that the most powerful ideas are small enough to fit on a paper napkin, yet large enough to change your entire world. These Edge of the Napkin series conversations are where we go a little deeper, where the conversation turns inward and where sometimes the thing you thought you understood starts to feel a little less certain. And maybe you've had that feeling where something you were so sure about starts to shift, where the more you learn, the less you feel like you actually know. And it's an interesting place to be, isn't it? Because part of you might want to hold on tighter, hold on to what you think is true. And another part of you might start to question everything. So what if neither of those are the answer? What if there's another way to move through that space, not with doubt, not with hesitation, but with something else entirely, something lighter, something more open, something that allows you to keep what you know and still discover what you don't. In this conversation, we're going to explore the idea that you can know something and still be incomplete, that things can be beautiful and disappointing at the same time, that clouds can hold imagination and still just bring rain, and that love can feel infinite and still be complicated. And maybe, just maybe, the goal was never certainty. Maybe the goal was wonder. So as you listen, you might start to notice where you have been holding on to needing to know, and where you might be ready to let something open instead. Let's dive in. I used to think I knew, like I knew not just a little, a lot. 18 years old and absolutely, completely certain. Certain about how the world worked, certain about what mattered generally, but also to me, and certain about what my father and parents in general didn't understand. I remember that feeling really well, that quiet internal scorecard where I somehow surpassed everyone. Different country. My parents were from a different country, a different generation, a different lens. And in my mind, that meant I knew more about where I was. That was the peak, not of intelligence, but of certainty, because it's been sort of downhill since then. So what does it mean to know something, but be incomplete? And if that's true, if knowing doesn't actually complete us, what's the right posture when we doubt? Do we doubt everything? Do we hesitate? Do we pull back? Or is there something else? Most people think that knowing is the goal. Accumulate through knowledge, and you'll arrive. You'll be where you need to be. Clarity will come. Confidence will stabilize, and decisions will absolutely get easier. That's the promise. More books, more podcasts, more frameworks, more answers. And if we're honest, a lot of our identity gets built around that. I know this. I understand that. I've got that figured out. Knowing becomes a form of control, and it helps to create a world that is clear. It creates edges in a world that can feel fuzzy And for a while it works until it definitely doesn't. Because eventually you study something deeply enough and the edges completely disappear. The deeper you go, the less certain you become. Not because you're losing intelligence, but because you're gaining perspective. You start to see how many variables are actually at play, how many forces you don't control, how many interpretations could all be true at the same time from different perspectives. And then something shifts. Knowing stops feeling like a destination and starts feeling like a doorway. You don't arrive, you enter. And if you're paying attention, you realize something else. The certainty was never the strength. It was a compression. It flattened complexity into something manageable. It also flattened possibility. Because when you know, you stop looking. And when you stop looking, you stop seeing. So I go back to that version of me at 18 an awful lot. Not because I judge that version of myself, but because I recognize him. The feeling of having figured something out, it's really intoxicating. It feels like power. It feels like clarity, like progress. And in that moment, looking at my father, I didn't see depth. I saw difference and interpreted the difference as somehow a lack of understanding. I thought he didn't get it, didn't get this world, didn't get how things worked now, and it didn't get me. And what I couldn't see then was how incomplete that view was. It wasn't entirely wrong. It was just incomplete because what I was measuring wasn't wisdom, it was familiarity. I knew in my environment better. I knew my references better. I knew my language better. But knowing more about a narrow slice made me blind to the whole. And over time, life started to introduce me to a friction, through friction, into that certainty. So moments where I thought I knew no longer didn't work. Situations that didn't respond to logic, relationships that didn't follow rules, emotions that didn't really make sense, and slowly that confidence I had in my knowing started to soften. And not collapse, I mean soften. And this is where a lot of people go two different ways, either doubling down on knowing and sort of faking that knowledge, or retreating from it. Doubling down looks like this: more rigid thinking, more certainty, less listening, more defending. And it probably sounds very familiar in today's world. I know what I'm doing. I've seen this before. This is how it works. Trust me. It becomes louder, sharper, and more brittle. And over time, it disconnects you from people, from nuance, from growth. And the other path is complete withdrawal. I guess I don't know anything. Everything is uncertain. Why do I even try to understand? It leads to hesitation, indecision, and a quiet kind of fear of being wrong. Neither of these really work because both are retractions or reactions to the same realization that knowing is incomplete. So what's the third way? It's wonder. Wonder is not passive. It's not vague curiosity. It's just not being open-minded. Wonder is an active stance. It says, I know something and I'm open to what I don't know at the same time. It holds both of them without collapsing into certainty or dissolving into doubt. And this is where the deeper frameworks start to show up, because wonder requires something very specific internally. Confidence. Not the confidence of certainty, but the confidence to not know. To say, I think this is true, and I'm also willing to be wrong. That's a different kind of strength because it doesn't depend on being right. It depends on being open. Congruence. Congruence is what keeps wonder honest because it forces alignment between what you say and how you show up. If you say you're open, but you shut down people when they challenge you, that's not wonder, that's performance. Wonder sounds like, I don't know. Tell me more. And it means it. Calm. Calm is what allows wonder to exist. Because when you're reactive, you search for certainty. You try to resolve discomfort quickly, but wonder requires space, time, and a willingness to sit in not knowing without rushing to fix it. Contribution. Contribution is what wonder produces, because when you stay open, you don't just accumulate knowledge, you discover insight. You see connections, not because you're creating something new, and it's not just because you knew, but because you stayed curious long enough for that creation to occur. So I still catch myself wanting to know, wanting to land on something definitive and close the loop. And there are moments where something is said, and I feel the impulse to correct, to refine, to tighten, to show that I understand this completely. And sometimes I do. But more often, I pause. There's something else there. There's something underneath what they said, something in how they see the world. And when I stay in that moment, instead of moving to resolution, something opens a different perspective, a nuance I hadn't considered, a layer that doesn't replace what I know, but expands it. And I've started to notice the moments that matter absolutely the most don't come from being right. They come from being open. So here are 5 key points. Knowing is always partial. Everything you know is shaped by where you stand, your experiences, your context, your lens. And that doesn't make it wrong, but it does make it incomplete. So the next time you feel certain, ask yourself, what might I be missing? Certainty can close more than it opens. Certainty feels powerful, but it can shut down exploration. It can end conversations early. It can limit what you're able to see. In one conversation this week, try to replace I know with I think. Doubt and withdrawal are definitely not the answers. Realizing you don't know everything can feel destabilizing. Pulling back isn't growth, it's avoidance. Our goal is not less engagement, it's deeper engagement. So lean into one area where you feel uncertain instead of avoiding it. Wonder is an active choice. Wonder is not something that happens to you. It's something you choose. It's a posture. It's a way of engaging with the world. It requires intention and practice. Ask one person this week, I don't know, but I wonder what you meant by that. The more you study, the more there is to discover. Depth does not lead to final answers. It leads to better questions. And those questions open new paths every time. Return to something you thought you understood and look at it again with fresh eyes. There's something beautiful about realizing you don't arrive, you don't figure it all out, you don't reach a point where everything becomes crystal clear. Instead, you move through it, seeing more, understanding more, and at the same time recognizing just how much more there is to understand. And maybe that's the point. Not to know everything, but to stay open enough that life keeps on showing you something new. So take your takeaway from this episode and this conversation, write it on a napkin and share it and tag it with the hashtag #PaperNapkinWisdom, because ideas small enough to fit on a napkin are often enough to change your entire world. Make it a great day.